Today's retirement world is vastly different from the past. In today's world, you can't rely on an employer or the government to take care of you. So it's on you to save for retirement and to have a proper plan in place to provide an income for potentially a long period of time. Are you using old, outdated tools and strategies to build your retirement plan? We're going to be examining that in today's show. Hey, I'm Doug Ray, and welcome to the Wealth Guardians radio show, and thank you for spending some of your weekend with us. Bryce Payne is here in the studio with me. Hey, Bryce, what's going on?
Good morning, Doug. How you doing?
I am doing well, and I'm ready to get into what I think is going to be a very, very interesting show for folks.
I agree. Let's get into it.
All right, for those of you who are new, Ray Financial and the Wealth Guardians is a local independent firm that works with folks 7 to 10 years from retirement, as well as those who are already retired. And most people don't know how to turn their retirement savings into accounts that provide a steady flow of income once that paycheck is gone. And I have focused my practice on retirement income planning. You know, history shows there's two powerful truths when it comes to finances in retirement. Number one, what got you to retirement is not necessarily going to get you through retirement. And two, most importantly, losses mean more than gains in retirement once you aren't drawing a paycheck.
And Doug, we say this every week, and I'll say it again. We practice on the fiduciary standard, not the suitability standard. And what that simply means for anyone who doesn't know, that means we are required to make recommendations that are solely in your best interests, not ours.
And before we get started, I want to salute our military veterans and our first responders. Thank you for everything you have done for us, what you do for us, and what you will do for us.
Absolutely. And I want to extend a gracious thank you to the families of our soldiers and our first responders out there as well. You guys take a brunt of all of that sweat and agony as well. So thank you to the families.
You know, in today's world, longevity is increasing, and it means people just live longer. That puts more pressure on retirement plans to provide that income for potentially, 20, 30 years in retirement or even longer. In addition, pensions, they're just not around much anymore.
Not too much.
In the past, pension income was a staple to most people's retirement plans, along with a Social Security check.
Right.
That's just not the case. People are living longer in retirement and without a pension. So that's going to put more pressure on that retirement nest egg you've built up. You've got to make that income provide you and your spouse for a much longer period of time. And pressure you to save properly to build that nest egg in the first place. And also, some of the old retirement strategies just don't work well, just like they used to. Some of them, quite honestly, are just plain wrong and obsolete. So today we're going to be sharing many of the updated strategies that you need to consider. And that's in order to have a successful retirement plan and bring it into the 21st century. So let's get started.
Let's bring it in. Okay. So I guess the best place, Doug, for us to start is you mentioned you have to plan for a retirement that could last not 10, not 20 years, but 30 years or even longer. Talk about that.
Yeah, a few generations ago, people started working in their 20s. They worked for the same company for, 40 years until they retired. Then they had a pension and they had Social Security. Then they lived for 10, maybe 20 years in retirement. Today, people might retire at 65, but they could live 30 years in retirement. And it's very unlikely they only work for one employer.
Pretty rare. We don't see that too often.
Not at all. And now most, corporations don't offer that pension.
It's a dying breed.
So the retirement strategy today has to assume you're going to need enough money to last at least 30 years. I always have given in the past the example of my wife's grandfather, Pop-Pop. He died at 104, and I think he passed away back in 2012 or so. But Pop-Pop was a postal inspector. He started in 1932, retired in 1962, but he had a great pension and Social Security. By the time he had passed away, his pension was multiples larger than his active duty salary. We just don't have that stuff available to us anymore. So you got to have a robust nest egg to be able to have a successful retirement plan, especially if you don't have a pension. And there's many different ways that you can save these days, and I've said in the shows past, it's very important that you save for retirement, but it's also important how you save. You have to learn how to save in the right types of accounts. And it's most important because this is going to determine the ultimate value of your retirement plan. Make sure you put yourself in a position that can provide an increasing income in retirement. And even though a lot of people won't retire with a pension, there's still tools that can position a portion of that retirement plan that can create something very similar to a pension. This is to ensure that you never run out of money. You have to learn about all these things to make sure your retirement plan is set up the best way possible for your specific situation. And this takes information, knowledge, and the updated tools and strategies that are available in today's marketplace.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And Doug, the next thing we must do, like you said, is to save, not just save, but save properly, and I'm guessing that means utilizing the right types of accounts. There's SEP IRAs if you're self-employed. There's different types of retirement savings plans if you're employed. Talk about what you mean by the right type of account.
Yeah, no matter if you work for an employer with a retirement plan or you're self-employed, there's a lot of ways that you can save for retirement. In the second part of the show, we're going to share how to utilize today's latest tools and options to properly save and maximize those retirement nest eggs.
Okay. We'll come back to that after the break then. The next topic is an outdated strategy that could potentially cause major problems in the future. What we're talking about here is saving in a tax-deferred way.
Yeah, I want to spend a bit of detail here. Probably the biggest difference between saving the days of the past versus now is based on the new tax code. Everyone's always been told over the years to save on a tax-deferred basis to build your retirement plan.
Right.
In other words, you take a tax deduction today, take the tax savings today, and pay taxes on your savings later in retirement when supposedly you'll be in a lower tax bracket.
Right.
Now, if that's going to be the case, then that's still a valid strategy. But based on tax rates today and where they're expected to go, many people now with this new tax code in place are not going to be in a lower tax bracket in the future.
Very true. Okay.
So they'll basically either be in the same tax bracket they are now or potentially a higher tax bracket. So if that's the case, if you're saving on a tax-deferred basis and taking the tax deduction today from Uncle Sam, that may not be the right strategy.
Okay.
That's the idea of that is with agreeing to pay the government back at a later date at a higher rate. Now, if you've got to borrow money today, let's look at it this way. If you need to borrow money today, and they told you, hey, the bank says, I don't need this money now. You can pay it back later, and we'll tell you when. And, oh, by the way, we'll tell you later what your interest rate's going to be. Would you borrow money from that bank?
Probably not. Not if I don't know what the interest rate is up front, no.
Well, you're basically doing the same thing. You're basically taking a loan from Uncle Sam.
Gotcha.
Taking a tax deduction today.
And they'll surprise us later.
Right, with the agreement of paying it back in the future when you retire at who knows what rate of taxes.
Pass.
Yeah, me too. So if you're like me and you believe tax rates are going to be higher in the future, then you have to save today on a tax-deferred basis. You're really putting yourself in a tough spot by paying tax at a higher rate in the future. It's kind of like this. It's like what you're doing now is paying tax on the or not paying tax on the seed, but waiting to pay the tax on the harvest. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay. So
there's ways to be more cost effective, ways to set your accounts up to be more tax efficient for the future. We talk all the time about, if you're still working and if you have a Roth 401k, by all means consider putting the money in there so that it will grow tax free and come out tax free. We talk about doing Roth conversion strategies. I think that makes a whole lot of sense.
But taking all this into consideration is really only important for those who are interested in paying Uncle Sam as little as possible.
Well,
Is that right?
I always believe we are supposed to pay only what our fair share of taxes are. I don't want to pay more tax than I have to.
So that puts you in the 99.9% tax, or people out there, 99% of the people don't want to pay more than they have
Exactly.
to. Okay. All right.
Why
Just
not?
want to make sure.
So, look at the new rules, the new tax laws, the new tools out there to make sure you're saving. And if you want to get more in depth on this, just call us at 336-391-3409.
Or our website, www.thewealthguardians.com. Okay, another potentially outdated strategy from the past is owning a percentage of bonds as part of your, quote, stable money. Doug, why is that outdated?
Well, people expected bonds to be the stable part of their retirement plan or their portfolios. And just like all investments, bonds go through times when they're very safe and also times when they're risky. In environments of increasing interest rates, kind of like what we're seeing now, bonds can be risky because the price of the bond is going to go down as rates go up. And you got to be very careful when you consider bonds as a safe and stable place. There's a lot of options and tools available today that can add some safety and stability. And you don't want to just rely on bonds. And by the way, if you're interested in this idea, there is a detailed report, that white paper written by Roger Ibbotson, that discusses using fixed indexed annuities as a replacement for the bonds in your portfolio. Now, that's a strategy I've been employing for over 20 years. And let me tell you, it's worked very well. So if you want a copy of that white paper, call us at the office, 336-391-3409, and just leave your name and email address, and Joy will send it right out to you. But it's been a beautiful strategy because, while bonds can fluctuate in price, with interest rate movements, indexed annuities don't. And indexed annuities can replicate what bonds 10 and 15 years ago gave us in yield, and that was in the 5-6-7% range. So, good information. So call us to get the Roger Ibbotson white paper.
Okay, well, we appreciate you listening. We're up against a break now. It's the way it goes. You're listening to the Wealth Guardians radio show, and if you like what you're hearing, please consider liking us on Facebook, Wealth Guardians Radio. And when we come back, we'll continue this conversation on outdated retirement planning strategies. And welcome back to the Wealth Guardians radio show, where we help our clients retire the job, but not the paycheck. And for listeners who are 5 to 7 years from retirement and want to confirm they're making the best decisions for retirement, we offer a no-cost, no-obligation second opinion to make sure that you are indeed on the right path. If you want to set that up with us, 336-391-3409. Doug and I would be happy to meet with you and take a look at what you're going through. And Doug, now before the break, we were discussing potentially outdated retirement strategies. I think that's a great thing for our listeners to know about. And that includes not planning for at least 30 years of retirement income needs, assuming that saving in a tax-deferred mode is the most tax-efficient way to deal with taxes long-term, and that the use of bonds is a risk-free strategy for your, quote, safe money. So next on our list of potentially outdated retirement strategies is using traditional asset allocation investment strategy with your retirement money. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I want people to really understand what got you to retirement may not get you through retirement. Look, when you first started working, you were trying to build that nest egg. You had time. The traditional asset utilization of a buy and hold strategy, a certain percentage in stocks and bonds, mutual funds, and cash, that's effective in your younger years. It can work when you have time and you can afford to ride the market, especially if you're putting money into the account on a regular basis and not taking money out of it. And when the market does fall and you go through a bear market, buying in at those lower prices has a very powerful impact years later when those prices reflate. Bryce, it reminds me of the story we heard the other day from our new clients, Ryan and Terry. Ryan was telling us a story about the 9/11 market, how bad that was. I mean, we lost 50% on the S&P, and we had the dot-com bust at the same time, and the NASDAQ was down 90%. Well, Terry was saying that, hey, his coworkers got scared. They bailed out. And he said, I'm not going to do that. He said, I'm 18, 19 years away from retirement. I'm just going to continue to, put money in this thing. And he said it worked out well. But he said, now here I am 9 months away from retirement. And if we have another 9/11 market again, it's going to devastate my retirement plan. And he's spot on, because we haven't had a bear market in quite some time. And I'll say this to you folks out there. If you're 5 years away from retirement, you're probably going to see a bear market here in that 5-year time frame. And that is, we call that the red zone. That time is critical to the success of your retirement future. So I'm not trying to alarm you, but I am trying to warn you that if you're in that retirement red zone, you're smack up against a bear market that's way overdue.
You have to have a defensive strategy in place at this point in time.
Look, in your pre-retirement and retirement years, you just don't have time to ride the waves of the market when you're going to need to be drawing money out of that nest egg. You simply have got to have a different approach. You just can't afford to take that traditional asset allocation, buy and hold approach. That's the quickest recipe for disaster in a retirement portfolio. Pulling money out of an account that's going down, that's really going to be disastrous for your retirement future. You have to employ investment strategies that adjust and adapt based on changing market conditions and won't ride the waves of the market and put you in a big down position. You got to protect that downside and never, ever put a position where you lose a lot of money, especially, again, when you're pulling money out of the account. And finally, you have to be very careful with target date funds. Target date funds are very popular in 401ks, 403b plans, because it's supposed to be that they're safe and stable as you get older and closer to retirement, but these funds do not adapt based on a changing market environment. When market gets risky, such as what happened in the fourth quarter of last year, they don't make any changes. And they just base changes on your age. And actually what we have seen when we've examined some of these funds, I'll give you a good example. We looked at an individual's target date 2020 fund not long ago, and supposedly he's going to retire next year, but this fund was 56% in stocks, and the rest was in bonds and money markets. But
that's really crazy.
And just because it says 2020, 2025 or whatever, don't succumb to the fact that you think that that's going to be a very conservatively managed fund. In fact, Bryce did a historical check on this particular 2020 fund, and in a really bad market, probably 2008 or so, it lost 37% of its value.
Yeah, that fund and so many of those funds, we talked to our clients, Doug, and we asked them about their risk that they feel comfortable taking, and they think that they're aligned with that risk tolerance that they have because they're in those retirement dated funds. Just because that number of the fund, 2025, somewhat aligns with when they think they'll be retiring, does not mean that the risk that is associated with that fund is in line with the risk that they feel comfortable taking. And I would say probably 90% of the time when you and I talk to clients, they think they've got a certain amount of protection by these funds that aligns with them, and they don't. And they're blown away when we show them what these funds could potentially lose again if another 2008 market crash happened. So it's you have to re-examine that strategy. I agree with you 100%. And now, Doug, another outdated strategy that we come across is folks thinking they should automatically file for their Social Security benefit as soon as they retire. And we've seen many times that is just not in their best interest as far as getting the most benefit of their lifetime. Would you agree with that?
Oh, exactly. A lot of folks just don't realize they can turn Social Security on any time between ages 62 and 70. And if you turn it on before your full retirement age, which is going to be 66 and some odd months for most of us, you're going to get a 25% reduced benefit. But if you wait till 70, you're going to get about an 8% growth rate plus cost of living adjustments every single year until 70. Now, how many safe investments out there can guarantee you an 8% return in today's market?
I can think of zero.
Me too. And you got to have an income to be able to bridge that gap from the time you retire to the time you turn your Social Security on. That's where proper allocations and placements in your 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, in order to identify that optimal Social Security filing strategy. It's something we do routinely, and it's something that we incorporate in every single retirement plan that we build for you folks. Really, it makes a difference. I mean, it makes a difference of tens, even $50,000, and sometimes we've seen $100,000 over a couple's lifetime. So this is a good time right now to mention our next Social Security workshop. We'll be talking more about that. It's going to be June the 11th and the 13th. So just call us at 336-391-3409 for more information to get on the mailing list for an invitation.
And Doug, as we said before, we're not doing as many of these this year as we have in years past. So this is a little bit rare chance for somebody to jump in and hear what we've got to say about different Social Security strategies. Again, that number is 336-391-3409. Go ahead and give us a call if that's of interest to you. Now, along these same lines, Doug, thinking Medicare will take care of all major health care costs in retirement, that is definitely an outdated thought or strategy for everyone out there.
Well, it is a misconception. It's common and it's true. Medicare is only going to cover about 80% of your health care costs. And honestly, folks, the other 20% you can go bankrupt on. Because the rest of it is either paid out of your pocket or you're going to have to get a Med Sup plan. And you've got to be able to supplement that Medicare policy. And the other biggest misconception is that Medicare is going to pay for long-term care. Medicare does not pay for long-term care in nursing homes, assisted living, or even home health care. And it's become a big issue with people living longer. Statistically, 75% of boomers are going to need some form of long-term care during their lifetime.
75%, that's a huge number. It's amazing. Now, we should bring up here that another outdated thought in this area is that long-term care is expensive and a use it or lose it situation, and that's not exactly true anymore.
No, it's not. You can use asset-based type long-term care policies. They can be designed a number of different ways. Let me just give you one example. Had a client in our Charlotte office about 20 years ago. He put $50,000 in a non-qualified variable annuity. Today, or it was worth about $170,000. And if he ever pulls money out of that, the $120,000 gain is completely taxable. So what we were able to do is use a code under the IRS called 1035 and do a tax-free exchange into a long-term care annuity that would basically give him and his wife over $700,000 of home health, long-term care, and skilled care. And when used for that $700,000 would come out completely tax-free. So we took $120,000 of potential taxable liability and turned it into $700,000 of potential tax-free liability. So if you've got one of those old non-qualified annuities hanging around and you think you might be interested in some long-term care, why don't you call us at 336-391-3409.
Yeah, Doug, these asset-based long-term care policies are a great solution for many people out there who that's a concern of theirs for. And I'll say this, too. Not having long-term care coverage and then having to go through the cost of it, that's the number one sinker of retirement plans out there. That is what brings people's plans in retirement to a grinding halt, is having to cover some type of unforeseen healthcare costs. And Doug, the last point that we want to make is the concept that you can't use more than one type of retirement plan or tool.
That's exactly right, Bryce. And, we're under some time constraint right now, but folks, you can use multiple different strategies. You can mix and match 401ks, Roth 401ks, Roth IRAs. You can do conversion strategies. There's just a lot of different ways that you can build a retirement plan.
And obviously, each person's situation is individual, and that's why we want to sit down for the no-cost, no-obligation second opinion and review with you. See if we can identify areas where we can offer additional options, more tax efficiency, Social Security optimization. So I just want to invite everyone out there to take advantage of our second opinion offer of your current situation, just to make sure that you have the level of control and protection of your retirement assets, so you can confirm that your strategy is one of participate and protect. Call our offices to schedule 336-391-3409. Let us show you how to retire the job and keep the paycheck. And then lastly, I also want to remind listeners of that upcoming Social Security workshop that Doug talked about, June 11th and or 13th. Call us 336-391-3409 to get on the invitation list. And thanks for listening, and we'll be here again next week on the Wealth Guardians Radio Show.